Hey guys, Dantics here. Star Wars Zero Company is not far from release, and there are actually a lot of hidden details that we haven't gone through. So let's break through everything we've learned. Here we see a special action, Sabotage. It's unclear exactly which class this belongs to, but if I had to guess, I'd say Scoundrel and possibly Sharpshooter. We see Cara Nova using it, and interestingly, it costs no action points whatsoever. Instead, you can only use it 3 times per combat. As a bonus though, each use grants 2 advantage for you to spend, meaning you can generate 6 free advantage over the course of a mission. Now, I'm getting bogged down in the juicy details before I even explain what the ability does. Sabotage lets you target an explosive object anywhere out on the battlefield. From what we're seeing here, it doesn't appear to have a range limit. You can literally begin a fight by detonating something on the opposite side of the map before your squad has even moved, which leans into the fantasy of setting a trap for your enemies before the fight begins, which is actually a really interesting design choice because environmental hazards don't seem to be just a random opportunity anymore. They look like they're becoming part of your build. If Sabotage really does belong to the Scoundrel, it reinforces what Bit Reactor has been saying about each specialization having its own unique identity. Rather than simply dealing damage yourself, you're manipulating the battlefield before the fight has properly begun, or even during it if you really want to play that way. 6 advantage is also surprisingly quite a big deal. Advantage already looks like one of the most valuable resources in the game. We've seen it spent on powerful abilities, squad synergies, and other advanced actions. So even if these explosions don't end up dealing much damage, simply generating advantage can be spent on Hawk's ability to top everyone's AP up, or Heavy's ability to whip out a rocket launcher to devastate the field, all of which can be done at the start of the match because you can detonate all these things straight away. Let me explain. Since we can use Sabotage 3 times, at least 3 times that we know of, and it doesn't spend action points unless there's some hidden cooldown we haven't seen yet, or a severely limited amount of explosives, you could theoretically open a mission by detonating 3 environmental hazards before spending a single action point. That could soften up enemy positions, destroy cover, reposition enemies, or simply give your squad a huge pull of advantage before your first proper engagement. You could set them all out and use all of your AP and then recharge it all with Hawk's ability. You may have noticed that Sabotage is listed as rank 3. That means that Cara Nova has upgraded the ability 3 times, and it also suggests that each rank increases the number of objects you can detonate during combat. If true, then without investing any points into the skill, it's not completely worthless, but it would be significantly weaker. It looks like Bit Reactor really wants the players investing into abilities rather than just handing you the strongest versions immediately. Clicking on the ability also snaps your camera directly to the nearest explosive object and then cycles through the next available target. Now, both of these objects have an explosive icon with a 0 beside them. That might mean they deal 0 damage and instead focus entirely on knockback. These almost look like steam vents more than explosive barrels, so it makes sense. Unfortunately, we don't actually get to see what happens to the clankers standing besides the explosion, so we can't confirm exactly how this will function. What I do notice though is another droider car. Shielded destroyer droids were terrifying throughout the Clone Wars. Even Jedi generally preferred finding ways around their shields rather than simply charging straight at them, and it also showed us the only instance of force speed. I don't know why they did that once in the movie, but if Zero Company sticks to this overall fantasy, I wouldn't be surprised if priority targets that force you to rethink your approach include these droider cars. I wouldn't be surprised if these become your priority targets that force you to rethink your approach. Maybe surprising them lets you take them out before they raise their shields. Maybe ion weaponry becomes essential, which we'll see soon. Maybe they're designed to absorb your attention while other droids push forward. Whatever the answer is, I suspect these won't be enemies you simply point and shoot at. Also note that Cara Nova is not an authored character, meaning she won't be introduced to you via story means like Tali Zaraya vs Jedi here.
I've been tracking Fathom for months. She's at the center of it all.
Instead, the player has built, named, and recruited this character. She can banter, bond, and chat with you like the other authored characters. In the next clip, we're on an entirely different planet, but once again, we're controlling Cara Nova. This time she's hovering over a concussion grenade Mark II. It costs 1 action point to throw and deals 10 splash damage. Just like the environmental vent earlier, this grenade also knocks back enemies. She only has 1 grenade equipped, so naturally she can only throw 1 during the entire combat encounter. EA has already confirmed that different characters can eventually carry different numbers of consumables, so some agents will likely specialize in utility focused builds, while others focus almost entirely on weapons and others on abilities. One thing I really appreciate is that before throwing the grenade, the game clearly shows us the damage each enemy will receive. Not only that, it also displays the exact direction each enemy will be knocked. That's such a nice quality of life feature because anyone who's played Xcom knows the frustration of hoping a grenade will take out the right amount of enemies and bring down the right amount of buildings, only for it to not do that. Here the game shows you what's going to happen before you commit entirely. A good player is obviously going to start using this for far more than just damage, knocking enemies off ledges, throwing them into environmental hazards, breaking formations, or even knocking them out of cover so another squad mate can finish the job, especially if they're in Overwatch, which I've gone through in another video. Here we see one of the basic battle droids being killed outright, while the others take significant damage before being pushed down into the lower ground. Interestingly, despite the fall, be it a short one, they don't seem to receive any additional fall damage. This clip also reinforces something else we've been seeing consistently. Coil brutes look substantially tankier and more dangerous than standard battle droids. Rather than every enemy simply having a bigger health pool, Bit Reactor appears to be creating distinct battlefield roles for enemies. Some enemies look disposable while others clearly demand your full attention. Now we finally get a proper look inside the armory, and honestly, this is where I think Zero Company starts to separate itself from other tactics games. There might not be hundreds of weapon types, but each weapon can be modified to better suit your individual agent. This particular repeater, the DC-15LE, currently has a barrel mod installed. The first option is a basic amplifier, increasing blaster damage by +1 when firing at close range. Hovering over close range will almost certainly explain the exact distance when we're playing ourselves. Essentially though, you're tuning this repeater to be more of a shotgun style weapon, perfect for aggressive frontline builds. Lars Arik, however, decides he'd rather use a basic single coil condenser, increasing critical damage by +2. Wait, no, he's changed his mind. Now he's looking at the basic rapid cycler, giving a 10% chance to restore an action point after attacking. Restoring an action point is incredibly powerful. Action points are everything in tactics games like this. However, 10% doesn't sound particularly high. Remember, you'll be attacking dozens and dozens of times over the course of a campaign, so it might pay off, once a mission. But once you get this up in rarity, I'm thinking 20%, 30% chances are extremely valuable. But right now, as a basic rarity, I don't think I'd pick this one up. And it seems Lars clearly doesn't trust the odds as well. He switches back and locks in the single coil condenser. What I really like here is that none of these upgrades simply increase damage. Instead, they encourage different playstyles to get that bonus damage. Do you specialize in close range combat? Do you specialize in chasing those critical hits? Do you gamble on action point recovery? Or do you create an entirely different build altogether? Some classes might really need those action points to, say, help heal or do more actions like throw grenades or stim packs. Some might really want to get up close. How you build your character is really going to matter as well. All of this together is exactly what good RPG systems should be doing, and these are just basic rarity mods. No doubt the legendary mods will encourage you to build around them completely. Moving down to cell mods, we find something even more interesting, a superior grade 2 ion modulator. It increases blaster damage against droids by +2, while increasing damage against ray shields by a massive +60. Yes, ray shields are officially in the game. Immediately that makes ion weaponry seem much more important than it first appeared. Could this be a way to take out your shielded droids? If droidicars, shielded installations or other Clone Wars technology becomes common later in the campaign, bringing one dedicated anti-droid specialist suddenly becomes a really smart squad building decision rather than simply taking who deals the most damage. Here's also a basic ion modulator. Naturally, it gives a smaller bonus, +1 against droids and +40 against ray shields, so you can see increasing the rarity of the same mod type drastically increases its effectiveness. Instead of bringing the exact same loadout into every mission, Bit Reactor seems to be encouraging preparation. If you know you're about to fight a lot of droids, you might swap to Ion. If you're expecting something else, you might prepare differently. That makes the armory feel like an actual strategic decision instead of just another menu. Finally, the scope mods. Right now we only have access to one, a basic long range scope. It reduces chance to hit penalties from a distance by 10%. Does that mean you have 10% increased chance to hit, or does that mean it's just 10% less penalty? Because that latter is considerably worse. Now, this is not the ideal pairing with the close range amplifier barrel, but for players who enjoy sitting back and picking enemies apart from across the battlefield, this feels like it might become a cool upgrade, especially the higher rarity versions. Sharpshooters might truly become the long range specialists we've been expecting, and taking a 90% chance to hit to 100% will really give you the confidence to take risks. However, if that 10% chance to miss only gets reduced by 10%, that means you go from a 90% chance to hit to a 91% chance to hit, and that suddenly doesn't seem as valuable. Finally, we move into combat with Hawks, our player-created commander, who can be customized as either a male or female, and between a large range of aliens, including human, of course. Since he's equipped with a repeating blaster, he gains access to the standard repeating blaster attack. This attack consumes all remaining action points before it fires. The more action points you invest, the more rapid fire damage you deal. I actually prefer this mechanic to the classic Xcom where it just ends your turn when you attack. Every single turn you're making an interesting decision now. Do you move into better cover, reposition for a better angle, sprint and fire, or do you stay exactly where you are and unload everything into the target for maximum damage? There isn't really a universally correct answer. It entirely depends on the situation. It also depends on what mods you have equipped, how your team is customized, and what's happening around you. That's exactly what tactical games should be asking players. If we have that basic amplifier equipped, it might actually do more damage to move than attack, rather than to stay still and attack for that bonus rapid fire damage. This is one thing that immediately caught my attention though. Look at the hit chances. Several enemies are sitting at 100% accuracy. Anyone who spent hundreds of hours in Xcom knows how unusual that is. Missing a 95% shot has practically become a meme. Now, obviously, I don't have enough information to say if Zero Company is abandoning that style of randomness, but from everything we've seen so far, Bit Reactor seems to be placing more emphasis on positioning, squad synergy, abilities, and preparation, rather than simply praying your percentage roll succeeds, or at the very least, they're giving more ways to reduce the variance. We'll need to play for ourselves before making that call, and hopefully I get to do so soon. But it's definitely something I've noticed. Against this coil striker, Hawks is expected to deal 12 damage with complete certainty, and if he crits, he'll obviously get more. Like several other attacks we've already seen, this attack also guarantees damage against the enemy's cover. That's another subtle mechanic I really like. Even if you're not killing enemies, even if you're missing, you can still progress the fight. If you open your turn by destroying cover, incidentally, the rest of your squad has cleaner shots on that enemy. Even if you do 0 damage, your follow-up can be devastating. It is Zero Company after all. Little mechanics like this and the fact that your team levels up by working together encourages teamwork rather than expecting one overpowered character to carry the entire mission. Finally, I absolutely love this little animation. When Hawks opens fire, nearby enemies physically react. The droid besides the target recoils, throws its arm up, and instinctively shields itself, which is very human. It's a tiny detail, but the touches like that make firefights feel more alive. So while these clips might only be 20 or 30 seconds each, they're quietly confirming a surprising amount about how Zero Company actually plays. We've learned about environmental interactions, advantage generation, consumables, knockback, weapon modification, ion weaponry, ratios, cover destruction, and even the overall philosophy behind squad building. The more footage Bit Reactor releases, the more convinced I am that this isn't simply a Star Wars Xcom. It's clearly inspired by Xcom, absolutely, but it's layering RPG progression, weapon customization, squad composition, and Star Wars authenticity on top of that formula in ways I'm really excited to get my hands on. Not to mention the promise of deep characterization and narrative. So hopefully they keep dropping these little gameplay nuggets and I'll keep breaking them down frame by frame and getting out every hidden detail I can. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, ciao friends.